Hey, it's me, Riker. Today we're going to have a look at in-game campaign pushing teams for AFK Arena. So we're going to start off with the king himself, Thorin, the Fallen King. In a previous video, I covered all of his abilities and the minimum amount of investment required in order to get you started on your campaign pushing journey. Now this hero revolves around his ultimate skill, the retaliation ability. This allows you to essentially reflect all of the incoming damage going into Thorin back onto the enemies and one-shotting all of them with a single ultimate skill. Now, there are three things that he requires. This is accuracy, energy, and a significant level deficit in order to do the necessary amount of damage. So let's begin with accuracy. You can gain accuracy of various items, artifacts, and heroes in the game. Now, these can be provided through buffs or secondary stats that Thorin can receive. Now, you can check this out in the attributes bonus and see how much he has. Now, the reason why this is important, as this reduces the amount of retries you need to do per campaign stage. Now, especially when you are fighting those pesky Kaz or Tassie stages who have nearly infinite amount of dodge when fighting them in campaign. Now, you can get this accuracy through gear, such as his weapon over here, which can give him a total of 360 points of additional accuracy. Now, you can also substitute this with the legendary version. However, I do not recommend going for this, as this gives a reduced amount of accuracy, which will reduce the effectiveness and the amount of retries that you need to do for that specific campaign stage. Now, the next item that you might be looking at is the chest piece. Now, why is it only an elite piece? Now, the reason for this is, once again, it gives accuracy. Now, this stat is extremely important. However, if you go for the mythic version, this will give you a stat you do not want at all. And this is physical resistance. Now, this stat reduces the amount of damage, reducing the amount of reflected damage, and increasing the amount of times that you need to retry a specific campaign stage. So, because this item is extremely easy to pick up and you can get it very quickly, you can always upgrade it to 4 stars and equip it to Thorin immediately. Now, this will give him the necessary accuracy and he'll be able to deal with the enemies respectively. Now, the next comes the boots. Now, the boots have two important stats, being accuracy, once again, and haste. Now, this is another stat. However, it is not as important as the previous stats that I mentioned above. The main stat that you are looking for is the accuracy and getting it as high as possible. Now, his helmet does not give all the necessary stats such as accuracy or energy or any of those good stats. However, it gives him a bit of crit, which is required for him. He needs this crit in order to deal extra damage, and it gives him a bit of attack and HP for survivability. Now, this dodge is extremely irrelevant as it is less than the accuracy of the enemies when fighting in campaign stages. Now, the next item that is extremely important that can also give you a significant amount of accuracy is through the artifacts. Now, this is mainly achieved through the blade over here, Dura's blade, which can give you a bit of accuracy. However, it is not significant enough in order to warrant this change. However, if you're fighting at much higher deficits, such as 200 and above, then blade might be a necessary substitute in order to be able to get enough damage and accuracy for Thorin to one-shot the enemies. Now, there are other artifacts that Thorin works extremely well with, such as Dura's Eye over here. This is mainly used for the haste that it provides Thorin, the crit, and the 30% additional damage every single time Thorin can crit. So this can be used for his ultimate skill, which can crit and do an extra 30% more damage and reduce the amount of retries for that specific stage. Now, the next item is Dura's Call. Now, this is mainly falls under the energy category. Now, there are numerous ways that Thorin can gain energy. Now, he can either gain it through teammates, through himself, or he can gain it through this Dura's Call. Now, the reason why Dura's Call is so special is because of this 5-star upgrade. If slain, all remaining energy is shared amongst allied heroes. So if you have 2 allied heroes and one of the allied heroes has this specific artifact, Dura's Core, all of the energy that that specific hero has will be immediately transferred to Thorin, allowing Thorin to use his ultimate immediately without any pauses. Now this is extremely effective when you give the rest of your teammates, essentially being your 4 other teammates that Thorin can be paired up with this specific item. This will essentially funnel all of the energy into Thorin, allowing him to ult. Now this specific artifact is in many cases game breaking, as in many of the stages, without a 5-star call on very specific heroes, you'll not be able to pass that specific stage due to this energy funneling into Thorin. So the next thing is level deficit. Now when you use Thorin, you'll primarily want to use him at a level deficit of 120 and above. Anything lower than 120 either won't work at all or will take you a significant amount of retries in order for that specific stage to be able to be completed effectively. Now, when you're fighting, in my case, at a level 200 and above, this is extremely easy and it will take you sometimes even the first try of that specific stage in order to work effectively. So let's have a look at this specific stage. Now, the teammates that Thorin can be paired up is numerous teammates. These are not fixed, and Thorin's position can be anywhere on the team as long as he can group up, or his teammates can group all the enemies around Thorin. Now, let's have a look at this specific Thorin's abilities and his gear. Now, once again, we can see the elite chest piece because of that accuracy. Then we can see that artifact, which gives him 30% increased damage or crit damage on his ultimate skill right over there. And now we can see a 5-star call on 2 heroes, on both Scrake and Kalthar. Now all of this energy gets funneled into Thorin so he can ult more frequently. Now we have 2 very specific heroes, Pippa and Lawson. Now what Pippa does in this specific team, Pippa will throw Thorin into the most densely packed area so that Thorin can use his ultimate skill. And then what Lawson does, he'll link 2 enemies together, effectively doubling the amount of damage Thorin can inflict on the enemies. So as we can see in this specific battle report, all of Thorin's allies do nearly 0 damage to the enemies. The only one who's dealing damage is Thorin himself, and maybe a bit of damage is coming from Kalthar. So let's just play this specific replay. So as we can see, Thorin starts off in the beginning of the battle, gets thrown into, in this case, into the allied side of the battlefield. And as we can see, he immediately has full energy. So as soon as he resurrects, he can immediately use his ultimate, be immune to all control effects, and now he will be able to easily one-shot the enemies just from his ultimate skill. There we go. He one-shotted the enemies and he's easily defeating all of them in a single swipe. Even heroes such as Wukong and various other heroes in this team. So let's have a look at a couple of teammates that Thorin works extremely well with. So this is a formation that I've made recently. So as we can see here, there's Thorin and there's Pippa. Now Pippa will throw Thorin into the enemy lines or into the most densely packed area of the battlefield. Now we have another ally over here. This can be your energy-based ally. So this can be either Laika, Aziz, or even Rowan, who can provide an additional energy so that Thorin can use his ultimate immediately as he resurrects. Then we have 2 displacement-based heroes. This is both Nara and Kalthar. So basically what Nara will do, Nara will pull an enemy ranged hero, essentially a hero that does not move, into your line. So imagine here's an enemy hero such as Rowan. Nara will pull this hero all the way back here to where Nara is standing, and this will allow Thorin to easily be able to use his ultimate in this area without even having Pippa to being in the back line. So This will allow Thorin to essentially group all the enemies around him so that he can use his ultimate skill. Then we have Kalthar. So if there was a hero over here, Kalthar would swap positions with that hero, especially if that is a backline ranged hero, and essentially that hero will swap and Kalthar will go to the position of that specific hero. Now, this will essentially allow Thorin once again to group up the enemies and use his ultimate skill. Now, there are numerous heroes that work well with him. However, once again, relics are extremely important. So in this case, you would want a couple of the heroes in this team to have a Drua's Core, or in this case, Thorin would have that Drua's Eye, and the rest would have Drua's Core. This would funnel the energy to him, and Thorin would be able to use his ultimate more frequently and more reliably every single time you fight an enemy stage. Now, once you have all of these aspects covered, Thorin will always use his ultimate, no matter what. And you do not, in most cases, even need a pet in order to buff up Thorin even further. Now, a lot of people might be asking, should I engrave Thorin or not? The reason why we do not engrave Thorin is this gives him damage reduction. When you look over here, this gives him HP and magic resist. Now, this will allow him to take more damage. However, this will reduce the amount of retaliation that you do to the enemies. So if you do plan on engraving him, I do not plan on engraving all the way to 30 or even any point above that. The only stats that I would get for him is the accuracy, crit, and the haste branches to the left over here. However, I do not plan on engraving anytime soon because he simply is that effective at the level of investment that he's currently in.